anxious that a war. So people are anxious that the war might start. There's a lot of anxiety on that. So basically, there is, and of course, inflation is at an alarming rate. More devaluation of the currency. We are now, yeah, $1 is worth 38,000 Lebanese pounds. So a lot has happened actually in a week. And yeah, lots of tension and lots of insecurity and lack of safety for people generally. Thanks.
Well, if you could say what's happening on the good side when we get to the evaluation of the session, we will note that there were very few participants from the MENA region in the webinar. So how are things looking with NGOs and the WILF section in Lebanon in terms of being able to pull together plans that resist some of the things that can be resisted and plans that move forward on improving the situation. So have there been any developments along those lines in Lebanon?
No, I think we're planning to meet to discuss this, but I think that members in Lebanon are also under a lot of strain themselves, and are unable because we're all working on a voluntary basis. And so since economically things are not well, gas is expensive, we have not been able to meet properly. But we are going to consider Zoom again, though it's not COVID anymore, and how to meet, to plan, and to see what kind of remedial measures. But also a lot is banking on reach out and to international connections, especially through WILF, to help with the advocacy work and obviously probably fundraising in order for us to get some paid labor, because people otherwise are very busy with other jobs that they need to put food on the table. So that's the issue. Shireen, if you have anything to add on that.
Well, no, because Hanan is here. And so we need to hear what's happening in Palestine along those lines, because when we get to the other action items, we'll be able to talk more about what we're going to do about it. So Hanan, we're glad you could join us. So the question that we're asking you, Hala gave her report. So could you report on what the latest developments have been in the region in terms of the apartheid situation and the things that Israel has been doing in blocking the solidarity movement, and also what is the effort from the NGOs and from the Palestine section on what you're doing about it. So Hanan, could you please tell?
Thank you very much. I'm now stuck in the checkpoint, and you can imagine what checkpoint means. Since 3 hours, I've been trying to enter my city, Jerusalem, to sit in my office and talk to you. Unfortunately, I'm still in the checkpoint, and this can give you an idea what's going on in Palestine, how time of Palestinian passed. What is important now is for Palestine is the United Nations meeting after 2 days, and President Abbas will call for full recognition of the state of Palestine. We're not sure if this will succeed. If they use the veto, that means it will not go ahead. If it passed, it will be another era, another period for Palestinians to build up their state and do something. But I doubt it that they will give us this opportunity to have our real estate. This is one thing. The other things, as you know, know, and as we reported in many reports, and the increased number of killed people every day in every city they enter, I kill people.
Well, thank you.
And this is going on, and there is a silence in the world except our pressure now the international community has to have a stand. Yeah. You're hearing me? And
Well, Hanan, your connection is not great. So let me ask you this about the Palestine section. What is the state of the Wilf Palestine section? How are members doing, and are they working together?
well, yes, we are part of. Yes, yes, we are part of the situation in Palestine. I'm coming back from Ramallah. We had a meeting for the executive committee because some of the members cannot enter Jerusalem. Then I have to go to Ramallah. We have plans. We resist. We demonstrate. We write. We do whatever necessary for women, especially, and for all the Palestinians, for the resolutions, for the hope, for the all what the occupation is doing. So we need the support, in fact, and I know that you are supporting us very well, and all the sisters. We need, as Dayala said, the ICC should act because lots of crimes against humanity and against the Palestinian people. So this is the thing that we do. In addition to all, we participate even in many cultural and many, so we are very supportive to the women in prison. You know, they are facing very hard time, and you see through the lawyers, we cannot enter to them, of course, but we have a special legal advisor who can go on our behalf to see how they are. We visited the family of the people, the martyrs in Jenin and in another cities, you know, what they face, whatever they need. We write about them and we express that during the media to the world to see what's going on in Palestine. And too many plans we are going to, I will write to you about it in the future.
Thank you, Hanan. And the next item on our agenda is to do an evaluation of the webinar. And that's those of us who were in attendance at the webinar. So I'll call on you, and if you could do a kind of 1 minute or less evaluation of what you thought about the webinar. So I will start with mute yourself.
If you allow me 1 minute just to add.
No, Hanan, mute yourself because I'll call on you last. So Lucy, Lucy, if you could do your evaluation of the webinar.
I thought the webinar was informative, and it's something that we should share with members that were not able to join us at that time.
Thank you. Shireen, your evaluation of the webinar.
Thank you. It was an inclusive participatory approach where members are able to be informed in a very well way, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Nada, your evaluation.
Hi, it was definitely an informative webinar, especially in regard to the Palestinian side of events. It is always good to keep those webinars alive and coming for us to stay focused. And I hope to take it further.
Odile, very glad that you're here. I did see you were in the webinar. So what did you think about the webinar, Odile? And please introduce yourself so that people know that you're with the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee. Thank you, Odile.
Hello, my name is Odile Huguenot-Haber. I am with Ann Arbor in Michigan with a branch, but I thought the webinar was a good beginning. I hope it will continue. We need to focus on the US policy, and that was spoken a little bit about. So it was nice to see all the different sections together. I thought you did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. And Barbara Taft, what was your evaluation of the webinar?
I have been getting feedback, and the feedback has been largely good. The one thing that I was concerned about that didn't happen was that we were not able to answer all of the questions that were posed. There were some that were still hanging at the end. And I'm wondering if there is a way that we can follow up with the attendees, and especially the people who asked those questions, and provide them with some answers. I don't know. Thank you.
Well, Sulfred, could you go next, please?
I was happy with the webinar. I was, if the question is what can be done, I think there is a big, yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing like more like how far down in the river do we work, or how far upstream do we go. But the webinar itself, I think maybe it was too much like a weight on the problems and too little about solutions.
Thank you. And Salma, if we could have your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was great to see so many sections and all of them coming together. It gave a good overview. I think it would be great to kind of become more specific as we go, either per country or if we're, you know, because the context and the challenges I think are very different, and so perhaps require more in-depth discussion.
Well, thank you. And George, what were your thoughts? And then I will share mine.
Like others have shared, it was a very informative and excellent webinar. So content-wise, I think we were right on. And the speakers, everyone gave helpful information and answered the question, what is to be done? The only thing I would suggest that could have been improved, if we could have figured it out, is if we had more participants from the MENA section and more of a discussion on what options there are and what is to be done, more than just the presentation and the questions and answers. So a discussion would be great. That's all I've got.
Well, as the organizer, I'm always concerned about turnout. And I was disappointed that there were so few participants from the Palestine and Lebanon sections, from what I could see. And I was really impressed at the high number of members from the US section who showed up. It was very good representation, which I hope that the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee will take that and run with it. But the thing that really impressed me most is how well people were prepared, especially Hanan and Hala and Nada and Sulfred, because the presentations were excellent. And I'm glad that Yasmin asked folks to send that information to her. And of course, Lucy, my favorite singer in the whole wide world, she really brought in the inspiration with Free Palestine. And so I really thought it was a good first attempt at answering the question, what is to be done? But most importantly, George took the time to extract some of the many good proposals that came from all of you who were speaking about what is to be done. So the next item on our agenda, if we could hear from Hala with her quick evaluation, and then from Hanan with her quick evaluation, then we'll move to the what is to be done part. Hala, what did you think about the webinar?
I was really grateful that all this effort has been invested to put the spotlights on what's happening in these two countries, because really it is a big need, and it was a great way for us to do this work we're doing right now, planning the way forward. I do agree with you, Teresa and George, on the turn up, and I feel a bit responsible about that, because I should have insisted on more advertisement and participation of section members. So sorry, it was really my bad, but I had some medical issues ahead of it, and I wasn't able to follow up on that. So apologies for that. But otherwise, I'm really happy that this is a way to kick off a discussion on the next steps and what we can do, rather than just a webinar and then we stop talking about it. Thanks.
Well, thank you. And Hanan, what did you think about the webinar?
Yes, for me, it was a very great beginning. And the way you and the friends welcome our speech, understand the worries and pain that we are facing, the difficulty, I think it's a very high morals, and it's reality. We are not speaking about imagination, it is the real issue. I like it very much, and I told everybody about it. Sorry that maybe somebody didn't listen, but the most important, you as sisters, you listen to us, because this is the situation. The Palestinian members and everybody has experienced this situation. I like very much the points that was distributed 2 days ago. And it is very, very important if we can, implement and act for 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. I think we are successful, and we are in the right path to do something. As I said, it's not an easy task, it's very complicated, but we can do. Hand with hand, I think we can do together. The important point about the international community, the pressure, the gathering, having more free voices, the ICC, the United Nations, the Security Council, reaching the presidents of the states and the ministers, as we put it in the points. I think it's very, very important, and we are ready to go ahead with you with any step that you find is possible.
Okay. Well, someone named Diala joined us. Could she introduce herself?
Hello, everyone. Sorry for joining late. My name is Diala Shah, Japanese lawyer, and I'm the alternate representative for the MENA region in WILF. So that's it in brief.
You're the alternate representative for?
I'm the alternate representative for the MENA region and the WILF.
Oh, great. So glad you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is to talk about what is to be done.
Diala, you're breaking up. And if you could put the information that you just said in the chat, I'd appreciate it.
Great. Well, George, this is a part of the agenda that you need to run through. Is there some way that you can go through the actions? Do you have access to the list of actions?
I can share screen with the list if you want. I don't know if George, I think.
Oh, that's great, because George is on her phone.
Yeah.
So George, could you walk us through that since you put it together for us?
I'm not sure if George is here. I think.
Oh, did we lose George?
I think we might have lost, yeah.
Oh, well, Salma, could you
Sure.
do that for us? Thank you.
Yeah, I can just go through them. So some of the actions, yeah, that came out of the discussion: stop sending money and arms to Israel, stop dismantling settlements, or I guess dismantle settlements. In Lebanon, additional humanitarian aid, pressure for cabinet formation, provide support for forces, criminalize politicians. There is also, I think this came from the discussion, follow the pipeline and the geopolitics of the Middle East. Right to NPR and other media to correct or demand descriptions of what's being done in Palestine and Lebanon. Trainings for youth and investing in longer term peace to build problem solving and coping skills. Write and meet with Congress and state legislators to oppose legislation that criminalizes criticism of the state of Israel. Oppose legislation which blocks resources to humanitarian organizations. I think there was a link or to support PalestineLegal.org. There was also sharing of the Reclaiming Judaism book, force enforcement of international and criminal law. So those were the basics, and I think there was discussion of templates for letters to legislatures and media.
Well, the thing that we should be clear about in the spirit of self-determination, the work of freedom and liberation definitely has to happen for the most part on the ground in Palestine and Lebanon. And what we can do outside of the region is show the strongest possible solidarity by getting our government, particularly the US government, to change its foreign policy so that it is more towards peace than just blanket support of the state of Israel in terms of Palestine. And so those are the things that we wanted to kind of get clear about. And so let's have some comments about what Hanan and Hala and Shireen think should be done on this list in a kind of prioritizing it. So are there things on this list that you are prioritizing? Hanan, are there things on this list that you are prioritizing?
What you said, the points that you said are very.
Oh.
Hello, are you with me?
Well,
okay. Sorry. Shall I speak?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, my dear. Okay. Well, the point that you stated are very important. I would like to add to it to encourage the boycott movement, the international boycott Israel movement, because many states, including the US, now they punish the people who are following this. So I think it's very important, and not only on the cultural arena, in the economic, and in the political arena. This is very effective and can add to our points, the important points that we mentioned before. I think the international work has to be very strong. It is needed urgently, because the international protection for Palestinians are very important, because, you know, every day we have people killed and imprisoned. And so this international protection we can give it if we don't put pressure on the state president and prime ministers and in the United Nations, and as you said, in the legislative council members and other sectors of societies, of political societies, that can affect the international law and the international work. This is one of the important things that we urgently needed. The
hold on.
international protection for the Palestinian.
Hanan, hold on. Because now that we have this list that's extracted, it's my
Thank you.
expectation that people in the
Okay.
MENA region will
Yes,
meet
yes.
among yourselves to talk about your plans in the region, because the next item on the agenda is about the work that the Black Liberation Caucus, Wealth, has committed to a kind of Black Palestinian solidarity as part of our agreements that we're committed to. And this is work that some of us have been
Yes, we had
doing
it.
for decades.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
let's hear from someone else, Hanan. Solfrid, I was really impressed with the helping hands and the concept, this is no way to treat a child. And I see many different ways that your work could be used. So Solfrid, could you please say a little bit more about your work? And I hope to be able to talk with you in the near future about how we can use it, given we have so many school shootings and other atrocities that affect children in the US.
Exactly.
So I see that
Yeah.
two-way solidarity that's possible. So Solfrid, could you please speak?
Oh, thank you for that chance and for the invitation. No, we are looking for partners to spread more of our work, both in Lebanon and in Palestine, and of course in US and in different countries. So I don't know where to start to say more about that. The application is ready, and we are using it at the moment in Lebanon and in Jordan and in Norway, and a small pilot in US, but we are ready for scaling up. What's stopping it is like, it's something we haven't done a lot to like spread. So if we could do anything together to spread the word about that, and actually like get money to like find a way to spread the word and some investment in that would be fabulous. Investment in peace building and mental health work for adolescents. It is rather scarce. So there, but there is a lot we could do if we had if the political will for actually doing that, and going from the pilots we have done to large, like upscaled initiatives were found and built. I would love to be a part of that.
Well, thank you, Solfrid. I think you are definitely a part of that, given how long you've been working with refugees and adolescents in the region. See, for me, it's important that the movement is strengthened in the region. We do have our work cut out for us in terms of standing up to the US empire, but the work has to be strengthened in the region. And I often think about the different political units that claimed leadership over Palestinian politics, and how do we advance feminist peacemaking in the region. I think that is the role of Wealth in the MENA section, in the MENA region. And by the way, who's typing? Salma, is that you typing and adding to the document?
Sorry, I'm putting them in red, but just to capture the points you're saying. I hope I can stop if that's too distracting.
Oh, no, not at all. I really appreciate you doing that. Because the document can be used in the MENA region for the meetings you will be having in the region in particular. And of course, you could share it with those of us outside of the region. So was someone trying to speak? Shireen, were you trying to speak? Because we have about 5 minutes on this item of the list of things.
Thank you, Teresa. I just told you at the beginning that Hala will be discussing things that Hala and I were talking about yesterday. Please, if you can give the way to Hala to say.
Go right ahead, Hala, please.
I think that Jala had already reflected, and I see it captured in the document. So for us, it's, the work against corruption and criminalizing, demanding justice and criminalizing the politicians that are responsible for where we are right now. And of course, there is a need for more humanitarian work. Basically all the prevention of further corruption through the convention, work on the convention. I think it was captured already.
Well, thank you. Well, we have 3 hands up. So Hanan, Odile, and Barbara, do you have more you want to say on this?
Odile?
Yes, I
go
have
ahead,
one more point which is going on now. Shall I speak or other?
Go ahead, Odile, and please take your hands down when you are finished. So Odile, you go ahead, and then we'll go with Hanan and then Barbara. Those are the hands I see.
I wanted to say that today I saw on Instagram that some German people are suing the defense minister of Israel and the prime minister because of the operation in Gaza that killed many Palestinians. So they are suing them, and maybe the international court will get into it, and we should send them some support.
Thank you. Well, hopefully Salma has captured that and she can put it there because it's very good that Salma is typing in what's being said so that we can have this for sharing with all of us later. So now, Hanan, did you have something?
Can you send me this document? I didn't get it. Thank you.
Yeah, I will send it. Can you then, maybe you can then add what this group is or more about this group, because I don't have the information. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, put things in the chat, Odile, if you could. So Hanan, did you have something more you wanted to say?
Yes, my dear. One of the important issue currently is working, and we as well Palestine working and supporting in Jerusalem. You know, it is a question of education. The occupation would want to change all the texts, all the Palestinian books that the students, the children, and the adults learn. Their history, the history of Palestine, all what related to Palestine. They banned it all and he created another text that suits the occupation. And now in Jerusalem, we have in daily basis many demonstrations, and we talk in the TVs, international and national, and still going on. This problem has not been solved yet. So this is dangerous for the minds of the students, in different levels, and we have to stand firm with it. And if you can support this point, will be very important too. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanan. And now, Barbara, you're last, and we need to move on to the last 2 items we have on the agenda. Barbara.
One of the most important things that we can all do is to work on getting our media contacts going. I was hoping that my friend Rami Houri, who is a well-known journalist and had signed up for the webinar, was going to be able to be present, but he has media contacts. We all have media contacts, and we need to make up a list so that we can put out consistent information to the media. And we also can use the videos that we have available show them to as many people as possible and encourage them to write to their legislators and to international bodies, because getting the word out is one of the most important things we can do. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And so if everyone can take their hands down, Barbara and Hanan, the next item on the agenda is something that George and I work on consistently, and that is planning our work and working our plan. So the Black Liberation Caucus actually has a 3-year strategic plan that we're working on in terms of building the membership of the U.S. section of WILF and working on the anti-racism transformation of the U.S. section of WILF. And what we're adding to the plan now since the webinar is building the Black Palestinian solidarity in the U.S., which has always been very powerful since the 60s. And so I got first involved in the 60s when the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee called for Black Palestinian solidarity because we were all fighting apartheid at the time. We were fighting apartheid in South Africa, and we also saw the apartheid in Palestine caused by the state of Israel. So that's the work that George and I will put together, what is a 27-month plan. So we will come up with a strategic plan that involves many of the branches in the U.S. section, but in addition, some other organizations that have been working on Black Palestinian solidarity for quite some time in the U.S. So other non-governmental organizations. So I just wanted to kind of announce that George and I are working on that 27-month plan, which goes from October of 2022 to December of 2024. And when we have that, when we have a draft ready, we will share it. So are there any questions about that?
And is this the plan for the work that you're doing in the U.S., specifically on Palestine, sorry, or is it broader? Yes. On the anti-racism work? Okay.
No, it's strictly for the work we're doing in the U.S. But I think that because of WILF and the many sections in Africa, that we should be able to connect with the region, with the Africa region, because this is a UN decade for people of African descent. And part of what's happening during the UN decade is us showing solidarity, in particular with Palestinians and other liberation movements. So we're actually connecting the work with the UN decade for people of African descent. And so talking, and since the WILF Congress passed the resolution for recognition, justice, and development, we think that those same principles should be operating in the MENA region as well as it relates to Palestine and Lebanon. So it's a way of connecting the UN decade for people of African descent with the struggle for liberation in Palestine and Lebanon. So that is the strategic outlook that we have. And so we'll be talking about it on Sunday, September 25th at the meeting, the regular monthly meeting of the Black Liberation Caucus. So that's the plan.
Excellent.
Oh, well, now the other action component or question, and I'm glad that Odile and Barbara are here because I remember at one point there was a Lebanon working group inside of the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee. And since Nada, Barbara, and Odile are here, I want them to say where that work stands and if there are any plans over the next period to develop that solidarity work with Lebanon in particular. So I'm asking that question of Barbara, Nada, and Odile.
Can I go first? I'm not sure if Barbara and
Yes,
Odile.
I just wanted to say we have a retreat and we're going to decide our work in that retreat coming up soon.
Well, go ahead, Nada, if you have something you would like to add.
Yes, of course. Well, after the webinar last week, I think it was a week ago, I spoke from the point of the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee and the work that's suggested and expected that we could be carried on further. 2 points that we can take on from here, whether with the Middle East Peace and Justice Committee or whether with the Black Liberation Caucus, the focus from the side of the US should be right now, when it comes to Lebanon, focused on 2 items that really could take us into putting into action with our local politicians. And I can refer to a local politician in Connecticut that's working on that issue. But let me just tell you, the first one is the Lebanese border, both land and water. I would like to ask you to pay attention to that today. The negotiation that's happening and to ensure secure and safe border will ensure rebuilding the process in Lebanon, and nothing else will help contain the flow of illegal arms and weapons from and to Syria, other than actually paying attention to the borders and really putting that further into delegations in the US to push that issue further. The second point that I would like also to focus on in the US is the right of return of the displaced people safely back to their homes in Syria and hopefully one day to Palestine. As we all heard from Hala and from what's happening in Lebanon, the amount of Syrian displaced people in Lebanon is really above and beyond what Lebanon can actually carry. And at this point, it would be helpful to both countries to actually really look seriously and push for that, the return of displaced people to their homes in Syria. I want to bring you to a politician in Lebanon, US Senator Chris Murphy, who was on a delegation in Lebanon a couple of times for the past 2 years. He spoke on his last trip is the demand of the Lebanese people are clear, major economic and political reforms to make sure every citizen in Lebanon has a chance to succeed, a government open to new faces and public services that work. Reshuffling the elite at the top won't be enough to fix the corruption. So on corruption, he says, corruption destroys democracies from within and can be used by outside actors to manipulate the country's political system. Today, the story is Lebanon, but we're seeing this play out in Iraq, Venezuela, Afghanistan. So we cannot wait any longer to tackle democratic backslidings. And therefore, that's why he will be introducing a legislation bill to establish a new governance track in the Foreign Service to focus on anti-corruption efforts and governance assistance program on behalf of the diplomatic corps. So I would be looking for this, Teresa, to follow on this legislation that Senator Murphy will be sending to the Senate. And I think that in my regard, in my point of view, as far as Lebanon issues, we need to look at legislation to at least look at these plain issues that will say, okay, what could the US do different? Here we are. Let's think of the corruption, which is the bill that Senator Murphy will be putting up. Let's look what can we do with the borders and the return of the displaced people back to their homes. These items are very important, and we need to follow legislation on these 3 items moving on forward. That's all I have to say on this.
Well, Nada, that is very important because the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee really has to take that up as part of the work that was started over a year ago when we first met Shireen and learned of conditions in Lebanon. And then, of course, you have traveled back and forth to Lebanon, so you have a real sense of what's going on as well. But one of the things that was said in the Congress, and maybe Shireen and Hala can help me remember, but there was some question about the possibility that the parliament in Lebanon could be changed and that there were some possible elections coming up in Lebanon. So I'm wondering what can happen on the ground in Lebanon to change the politics and the leadership inside of Lebanon. I seem to remember something was said about that during the Congress.
Sure. Can I tell you? I'll tell you my side of it, and you're free to also have Hala and Shireen. I'll tell you, nothing will change in Lebanon, even though we had the election and we had 13 members of the change team, which is Taghyirin, now they're calling them. They're going to change. They're coming from no specific party or sect specifically, but those are a minority when it comes to the countdown of the votes. And the votes is still in the same majority that was before, even though they reshuffled the names a little bit, but reshuffling still doesn't give them the majority. So yes, they are pushing toward governmental change, but that's going to take time in Lebanon. We might need another 4 years, 6 years to come to another election to maybe elect more new blood, new people.
Let's hear from Hala, because she wrote municipal elections. So
yes.
Hala, what do you mean by municipal elections?
Yeah, well, the Lebanon section is focused on this because there are upcoming, so as Nada said, the parliamentary elections have passed. We have not really, succeeded in making big changes, very incremental changes with very few independent new parliamentarians. They are doing some work that could lead to change, but not enough. But there are upcoming municipal elections where we're trying to ensure there is more representation of women, and talking also in Parliament about quota of representation for women. This is the work that the section is focused on, especially that the president of the section was a previous mayor, one of the very, very few mayors. So this is what we brought up in Congress, and we had a resolution on that to support the Lebanon increase in quota for women representation in politics. So this is, I think, one of the work streams. But yeah, a lot more needs to be done because there is now a real breakdown and people's lives are, at stake beyond the issue of political representation. So I think there's urgency on the other levels. And all that we discussed in the webinar in terms of depositors' rights, bringing to justice these politicians, and also ensuring that all the geopolitical interests are not taking Lebanon into very dangerous waters just to serve the interests of the usual suspects who have stakes in oil and what have you. And this is a big risk, given that most of our politicians have already sold us out to whomever they represent. So you have people who represent the interests of Iran, you have people who represent the interests of Israel and the US, and this is our big problem, that in the midst of all of this, we are losing lives and rights and um, food security and job security, and people are leaving. Basically, we're in a
Well,
very yeah.
Hala, you know, the more I hear, the more it seems important that there is a conference in the MENA region to talk about how the work gets done in the region, so that there's more collaboration and more working together on strategies and agreement on that in the MENA region, because the limitations of being so far away, our two-way solidarity means that we have a real interest in the change in US foreign policy, because it promotes war in the region, and it has promoted war in the region for many, many decades, since the founding of the state of Israel. And so we have a real obligation in the region, in the US, to change the foreign policy in the region. It's in our interest as well as in the interest of the region. But it's very clear to me that within the MENA region, you must come together and get stronger in terms of the sections and the ability to participate. So Shireen has her hand up, I believe. So
Thank you, Teresa.
Shireen, because this
Yes.
is the last
Thank
comment.
you. Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Actually, during my previous like serving as a regional representative, that was one of the major aims, to have more sections in MENA, to be more vocal, to be stronger. And I think this is something that we can work on together. But I just want to go back to the point that you were raising with Hala regarding participation at the municipality level. Definitely change is a dynamic. And change is coming definitely with the dynamics in Lebanon that are changing. And giving the local participation is different from the parliamentary elections. Giving also the fact that we have now 13 new members, change that are called like revolutionaries, if we may, definitely they're having an impact, because they are able to make, at least to stop any kind of law that is passing. They are able to let us know what's happening inside the parliament. Things cannot be the same. If you have a new indicator within a new plan, definitely things are going to change, and this is what happened in Lebanon. Now, regarding municipality elections, we have elections in May up in 2023. This is something we're working on. We had now the resolution that passed in the Congress. We are trying to do something also at the grassroots. But what we need is, we need more women at the municipality level, because what we think in terms of development is happening at the local level and not only at that parliamentarian level. So this is something we want to work on. And as you said, Teresa, we want also to help to change the foreign policy of the states on how it looks at MENA. We want MENA to be more vocal, to be more profound, to have our voices amplified. And I think I am grateful for the panel and the aftermath of the panel, because I think this is what we need. There are lots of things to discuss and talk. And maybe if we have some time, please, to have Diala. Diala is writing many things in the chat, maybe just to listen to her, if you don't mind, Teresa, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And if we could hear from Barbara, and then it looked like Sophie was trying to raise her hand. But Shireen, if you could take your hand down, and Barbara, if you could share your thoughts.
Yes, I put some of it into the chat. We have a retreat for our Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee. It's scheduled for 2 Saturdays, the 1st and the 8th of October. During that retreat, we will be likely stressing the fact that the US sends so much money to Israel, which is used to harm people, instead of sending money to the Middle East region, and especially to Palestine and to Lebanon where it could help people. And the issue is going to be high on our agenda. We have a number of people who are specifically interested in that and how we can make more of an impression on US legislators in terms of how they can turn around US policy. One of the things that I've been saying for a very, very long time is that if we only treated Israel the same as we treat other nations, for instance, in terms of weaponry that they have and not supplying them with so much that they don't need, we would accomplish a whole lot of really important things that could be helpful to human beings. Thank you.
The other part of that is that the politicians in the United States are taking a lot of money from the Israeli PAC. And if you go up against the Israeli PAC, they drive you out of Congress, which is what they did with Cynthia McKinney. And she can never get back. So we understand that inside of the US, Israel is operating with impunity. And so we really do need to do our work in that way as well, Barbara. So we need to talk about that in terms of how the Israeli lobby has got everybody bought and paid for in terms of the US Congress. And I can't think of a single exception at this point. So that's what we have to work on. But we're at the close of our session today. And I would just say that we should get back together at some point. And given we have a no to NATO webinar coming up on October 18th, I would appreciate it if we could get back maybe after that in October, because I envision us kind of coming back together to check over the next 2 or 3 months to see how things are going. Barbara, could you say again when the retreat is for MEPJAC?
It's 2 Saturdays, October 1st and October 8th.
Okay, great. Well, if we could get together on October 20, after the 18th. So we'll pick a day that's convenient for folks. But if you could think of some dates after October 18th, when we can get together, and preferably before the end of the month. But I will kind of leave that up to the MENA region to after you have had your discussions about coming up with your strategies and plans. When you think you're ready to reconnect with us, hopefully by the end of the month. If not, we could be November. But you're driving this train, MENA region. So you tell us when you want to get back together again. So I am so glad that Diala and other folks from the region are here. And Lucy has her hand up. Speak, Lucy.
Yes, I'd like to say that there are 2 members of Congress who have stood up for the Palestinian people, and that's Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. And there was something else I was going to, October 1st.
Mute yourself because I can't make out anything that's being said by Lucy. Somebody is unmuted and there's lots of noise. So Hanan or somebody, mute yourself. So Lucy, if you could please repeat what you were saying, because
there are 2 members of Congress who have not caved in to the Zionists, and that is Rashida Tlaib, who has the seat that John Conyers had, who also advocated for the Palestinian people, and Ilhan Omar, the the other point I wanted to make is that October 1st is part of the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, and we should be exploring what possibilities there are with foreign policy and police and incarceration policy. Workshops are being planned for that. And also October 8th is a national demonstration for Julian Assange, trying to wake up the journalists in this country to stand up for themselves and defend someone who is not a spy, but just a journalist, but who is being condemned and possibly targeted for an assassination attempt, and that's Julian Assange. And that's October 8th.
Well, let me just say to everyone that Lucy is the organizer for the newly reformed DC, Maryland, Virginia branch. So her branch is based in DC, which is the seat of the US government. And the branch has a meeting coming up at 4 today. So I'm hoping that Lucy will share this with members of her branch who are based in DC, and hopefully they can figure out a way to engage with the Congressional Black Caucus during their special conference. But we really need to stop now. So thanks to everyone for coming. And Salma, if you could please save the chat and save the recording for sharing with all of us later. Thank you so much for doing that.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
George,
night.
you're still in charge of the Zoom, right?